Palestinian territory, with the amount of roads that have been built for settlers only, with the settlers themselves encroaching on the Palestinian land in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem, with the fact that Gaza is so squeezed between the sea and the checkpoints, that there is very difficult to see at the moment two viable states there, because the geographical separation that has now been created. So it's very difficult to put a two-state geographical entity that is really viable. And I think that there's deliberate policy by Israel, and that this is the reason it's been flouting everything, because it's allowing time to go by. The more settlers that are planted there, the more land that is occupied, the tighter the squeeze that is on Gaza, the more difficult it is to get the two-state. So I think there is a problem in that, and the longer we go on with it without getting the solution, I think the worse the situation will be. In relation to the boycott issue, I mean, as I said, what we're doing at the present time, this is not arising out of the flotilla at all. And I put forward the motion 18 months ago after the Gaza incursion, and that was that, you know, the whole world was asking for somebody to set up an inquiry, somebody to do this, somebody to do that, but there was nobody doing it. And we said, look, we in the European Affairs Committee are going to do just this. We're going to set about establishing a set of hearings. We bring representatives of all the protagonists, the United Nations, Amnesty International, our own minister, the spokesperson for the Palestinians and for Israel and so on. Bring everybody together. And we have set up a 2-day hearing. Today was the first day, tomorrow is the next day. And we're going to go to Geneva and Brussels to meet people who are not able to attend, and we're getting written submissions as well. So we are going to determine as a committee with representation from all the parties, we are going to determine whether or not, once and for all, this trade agreement has been breached in terms of failure to observe human rights and international law. And it's not simply people say, "Actually, that's obvious." But unless you actually go to the process, put it down in an objective fashion, and then come up with your conclusions and your recommendations, then, and that is how we are moving forward at the present time.
So can I just ask you, in relation to the question that was put to you, are you saying then that talking is not a waste of time, but that we still should be doing it?
My answer was that I would be preempting our decision if I was to say that the conclusion is boycott or other types of sanctions. We have to go through that process yet.
Thanks.
Okay, I can understand there's the language of diplomacy, but there's also the language from the street, and I think that's what we need to engage in. There's just a couple of things I'd like to read to you from the Kairos document. What the Kairos document was, it was a landmark document that was issued on behalf of all the Christian institutions in the region of Palestine. And I think this is very telling. It says, "Our presence in the land as Christian and Muslim Palestinians is not accidental, but rather deeply rooted in the history and geography of this land, resonant with the connectedness of any other people to the land it lives in. It was an injustice when we were driven out. The West sought to make amends for what Jews had endured in the countries of Europe, but it made amends on our account and in our land. They tried to correct an injustice, and the result was a new injustice." I think that's very telling. It also goes on to say that Palestinian civil organisations, as well as international organisations, NGOs and certain religious institutions, call on individuals, companies and states to engage in divestment and in an economic and commercial boycott of everything produced by the occupation. We understand this to integrate the logic of peaceful resistance, and further we see boycott and divestment as tools of non-violence for peace and security for all. So that was coming from Palestinian civil organisations. So I think if they ask, well then we must follow.
Okay. Can I see people who want to speak? Can I see your hands again? Okay, it's quite a